Human finds an alien beauty bathing in the creek behind his home, and her face changes everything. The forest behind Matt Harrington's cabin had always been a sanctuary, a place where memories couldn't follow. At least, that's what he'd told himself when he'd purchased the remote property on Epsilon 9, a lush, Earth-like moon orbiting a gas giant in the Proxima Centauri system. The dense canopy of emerald foliage overhead filtered the alien sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor, creating an almost familiar atmosphere, if you ignored the occasional bioluminescent fungus or six-legged forest creatures scurrying through the underbrush. Matt's muscular frame moved with practiced efficiency as he made his way down the well-worn path to the creek, empty water buckets swinging from his calloused hand. His chin-length blonde hair caught the breeze, momentarily obscuring his face, a face that women back on Earth had once called handsome, before grief had etched permanent lines around his eyes. Another thrilling day in paradise, he muttered to himself, the dark gray shirt he wore over a simple tee already sticking to his back in the humid morning air. His trekking pants, worn at the knees, rustled against the alien ferns that encroached upon the narrow trail. 3 years had passed since the expedition. 3 years since he'd watched his team of alien xenobiologists die one by one in the ancient ruins just beyond the ridge. 3 years of self-imposed exile, haunted by the faces of those who had trusted his leadership. The colonial authority had cleared him of wrongdoing. Equipment malfunctioned, they'd said. But Matt knew better. He'd missed something, overlooked some warning sign that might have saved them. The gentle babble of the creek grew louder as he approached, the sound momentarily drowning out the cacophony of alien insects and bird analogs that filled the air. Matt knelt at the edge of the water, reaching down to fill his bucket from the clear, cool stream. That's when he saw her. His hand froze mid-motion, water dripping from his fingertips as his breath caught in his throat. Downstream, partially obscured by a cluster of fern-like plants, a figure stood waist-deep in the water. She was unmistakably female, but definitely not human. Her skin was a vivid sky blue that seemed to shimmer in the dappled sunlight, water cascading down her slender form. Long, silvery white hair floated on the surface of the creek, sparkling with droplets that caught the light like tiny diamonds. She wore some kind of translucent fabric that clung to her body, revealing rather than concealing the graceful curves beneath. Matt knew he should look away, should announce his presence or quietly retreat, but he remained frozen, transfixed by the otherworldly beauty before him. Then she turned and her eyes met his. Those eyes, large, almond-shaped, and filled with an intelligence that transcended species. They were a deep violet color that seemed to shift and change like the aurora borealis back on Earth. For a moment, neither of them moved, locked in a silent exchange that needed no translation. "Who are you?" Matt finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien woman startled, instinctively crossing her arms over her chest. Her expression shifted from surprise to wariness, her posture tensing as she assessed him. "I am Elisa," she replied in accented but perfect English, her voice melodic with an almost musical quality. "I did not realize humans had settled this region." Matt slowly stood, careful to make no sudden movements. "Just me. I've been here for 3 years now." He hesitated, then added, "I'm Matt Harrington." Elisa tilted her head slightly, studying him with those mesmerizing eyes. "You are alone here, Matt Harrington." He nodded, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she must feel. "I should go. I didn't mean to intrude on your bath." He turned to leave, embarrassment heating his face. "Wait," she called, and something in her voice made him pause. "I'm searching for something. Perhaps you could assist me." Matt turned back slowly. "What are you looking for?" Elisa waded closer to the bank, the water now at her knees revealing more of the translucent garment that clung to her blue skin. An artifact, very old, very powerful. It was hidden in ruins not far from here. The word ruins sent a chill down Matt's spine, memories flooding back unbidden. The screams, the blood, the helplessness as he watched his team die one by one. "The ruins beyond the ridge?" he asked, his voice tight. Elisa's eyes widened slightly. "Yes, you know of them." Matt's jaw clenched. "I know them. And if you're looking for what I think you are, you should turn around and leave this moon. That artifact has already claimed enough lives. Elisa stepped fully onto the bank now, water streaming from her form. Up close, Matt could see intricate patterns on her skin, almost like natural tattoos that swirled across her shoulders and down her arms. "You have encountered it," she said. It wasn't a question. "3 years ago, my research team and I, they died. All of them." Matt's voice was flat, emotionless. "Whatever you're looking for, it's not worth it." A flicker of something, compassion, understanding, crossed Elisa's face. "I am sorry for your loss, Matt Harrington, but you do not understand what is at stake. The artifact must be recovered before others find it." "Others?" Matt frowned. "What others?" Elisa glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers in the empty forest. "There are those who would use its power for conquest. I seek to prevent that." Matt should have walked away, should have returned to his cabin, packed his meager belongings, and caught the next supply ship off this damn moon. Instead, he found himself asking, "And what would you use it for?" Elisa's violet eyes locked with his, and in that moment, Matt felt as if she were seeing straight through to his soul. "To heal," she said simply, "to restore what was broken." Something about her face, the earnestness in those alien eyes, made Matt pause. For the first time in 3 years, he felt a flicker of something other than grief and guilt. Curiosity, perhaps, or hope. "Tell me more," he said, and knew in that moment that his life was about to change forever. Matt led Elisa back to his cabin, hyper-aware of her presence behind him. Water still dripped from her silvery hair, leaving a trail of glistening droplets on the forest floor. The morning sun filtered through the canopy, casting dappled light across her blue skin that made her seem to shimmer with each step. "It's not much," Matt said as they approached his modest dwelling. The cabin was sturdy but simple, a single-story structure built from local timber with a small porch facing the forest. "But it's home." "It is. Quaint," Elisa replied, her violet eyes taking in every detail. "On my world, we build our dwellings into living trees, shaping them as they grow." Matt unlocked the door and gestured for her to enter. "I can offer you some dry clothes, though they'll be too big." Inside, the cabin was sparse but tidy. A small kitchen area occupied one corner, a bed another, with a sitting area centered around a stone fireplace. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with physical books, a luxury in the digital age. But Matt had always preferred the feel of paper between his fingers. Elisa moved with natural grace, examining his possessions with unconcealed curiosity. Her translucent garment had begun to dry, but still clung to her form in ways that made Matt avert his eyes. "Here," he said, retrieving a simple shirt and pants from a drawer. "You can change behind that screen." He nodded toward a folding partition in the corner that separated his sleeping area. While Elisa changed, Matt busied himself making tea from local herbs, a blend he'd perfected during his years of isolation. His mind raced with questions. Who was she really? What did she know about the artifact? And why did he feel so drawn to her? "Your garments are interesting," Elisa said, emerging from behind the screen. Matt's shirt hung loosely on her slender frame, reaching almost to her knees. She tied it at the waist with what looked like a strand of her own silvery hair. The effect was oddly charming. "They suit you," Matt said before he could stop himself. He cleared his throat. "The tea's ready." They sat at his small table, steam rising from ceramic mugs between them. For a moment, neither spoke, the silence filled with unasked questions. "You said you wanted to heal with the artifact," Matt finally said. "Heal what?" Elisa's violet eyes met his, and Matt felt that same strange connection from the creek, as if she could see straight through to his core. "My people are dying," she said simply. "A genetic degradation that has plagued us for generations. The artifact contains knowledge from the ancients, those who seeded life throughout this galaxy. With it, we could reverse the damage." "And these others you mentioned?" "The Vorn," she said, her melodic voice hardening. "A militaristic species that believes they are the rightful heirs to the ancients' legacy. They would use the artifact's power to dominate rather than heal." Matt's fingers tightened around his mug. 3 years ago, my team and I were contracted by the Colonial Science Authority to study the ruins. Standard xenoarchaeological survey. We found something. A chamber with markings similar to those on your skin. He gestured to the swirling patterns visible on her forearms. Elisa's eyes widened. You recognized our script? Not as language, but as patterns? Yes. Matt took a deep breath. There was an accident. The chamber collapsed. I was the only survivor. It was no accident, Elisa said quietly. The Vorn have been systematically eliminating anyone who gets close to understanding the artifacts. The implication hit Matt like a physical blow. You're saying my team was murdered? I believe so. Yes. Her hand moved across the table, resting lightly on his. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through his arm. I am sorry, Matt Harrington. Matt stared at their hands, his tanned and calloused, hers delicate and blue. Something stirred within him, a feeling he'd thought long buried beneath grief and guilt. That's why I need your help, Elisa continued. You've been to the ruins. You survived, and you've lived here observing for 3 years. You know this land better than anyone. And if I help you find this artifact, what then? Matt asked, not pulling his hand away. I return to my people. We heal. We live. Her eyes held his. And the Vorn are denied a weapon that could enslave countless worlds. Matt should have felt manipulated, should have recognized this as a ploy to gain his cooperation. Instead, he found himself believing her, wanting to help her. There's something else you should know, he said, reluctantly withdrawing his hand. He crossed to a locked chest in the corner of the room, entering a code into the biometric pad. From inside, he retrieved a small object wrapped in cloth. I didn't leave the ruins empty-handed, he said, unwrapping the bundle to reveal a fragment of iridescent material, covered in markings similar to those on Elisa's skin. Elisa gasped, rising from her chair so quickly it toppled backward. You have a piece of it, she whispered, approaching slowly, as if afraid the fragment might disappear. May I? Matt nodded and she took the fragment with reverent hands. As her fingers touched the surface, the markings began to glow faintly, responding to her. It recognizes me, she said, wonder in her voice. This is indeed part of the life seed. With this, we can locate the rest. As she looked up at him, her face radiant with hope, Matt felt something shift inside him. A wall crumbling, a door opening. Her violet eyes, the graceful curve of her neck, the way her silver hair framed her face, all of it called to something primal within him. I'll help you, he heard himself say. But we need to be careful. If these Vorn are as dangerous as you say. A distant boom interrupted him, the sound reverberating through the forest. Birds took flight from the trees, their alien calls filling the air with alarm. Matt moved to the window, Elisa close behind him. In the distance beyond the ridge where the ruins lay, a column of smoke rose into the clear sky. They're here, Elisa whispered, her shoulder pressing against his as they stared out at the ominous sign. The Vorn have found us. Matt felt her tremble slightly, and without thinking, he placed his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, her body fitting against his in a way that felt strangely right despite their differences. Then we'd better move quickly, he said, already mentally cataloging the weapons and supplies they'd need. And I know these forests better than they ever could. As they prepared for the journey ahead, Matt couldn't help but notice how Elisa's gaze lingered on him, mirroring his own growing attraction. Despite the danger, despite the differences between their species, something undeniable was building between them. Something that, like the artifact they sought, held both promise and peril. We need to move. Now. Matt's voice was steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He grabbed a weathered backpack from a hook by the door and began filling it with essentials. Water purification tablets, emergency rations, a compact medical kit. Elisa watched him with a mixture of admiration and concern. The Vorn will have scanners. They can detect technology and energy signatures. Then we go analog. Matt retrieved a worn leather sheath from under his bed, revealing a gleaming hunting knife. He strapped it to his thigh, then pulled a pulse pistol from a locked drawer. Except for this, we might need it. He tossed Elisa a pair of sturdy boots. They'll be big, but stuff the toes with cloth. Better than going barefoot through the forest. As she laced up the boots, Matt couldn't help noticing how the morning light through the window caught in her silvery hair. Even in his oversized clothes, there was something undeniably graceful about her movements. "The fragment," Elisa said, carefully wrapping the artifact piece in cloth before tucking it into an inner pocket of the shirt she wore. "It must stay with me. My body's natural energy helps stabilize it." Matt nodded, slinging the pack over his shoulder. "We'll head west, away from the ruins. There's a river system that can mask our trail. The Vorn won't expect us to move away from our objective." "A clever strategy," Elisa said, her violet eyes meeting his with newfound respect. "On my world, we have a saying, the most direct path draws the most predators. On Earth, we say, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line," Matt replied with a wry smile. "But sometimes the scenic route is safer." They slipped out the back door of the cabin, keeping low as they entered the dense undergrowth. Matt led the way, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who'd spent years learning the forest's secrets. Elisa followed close behind, her natural agility compensating for her unfamiliarity with the terrain. The distant sound of engines grew louder, the unmistakable whine of Vorn skimmers. Matt signaled for Elisa to freeze as a shadow passed overhead, the craft's sensors sweeping the canopy. "They're doing a grid search," he whispered once the skimmer had passed. "Standard military procedure. We need to keep moving." They pressed on through the increasingly dense forest, the alien vegetation growing more exotic as they ventured into areas Matt rarely explored. Massive ferns unfurled overhead, their fronds creating a natural canopy that helped shield them from aerial detection. "Your knowledge of this land is impressive," Elisa said as they paused at a small stream to refill their water containers. "Most humans I've encountered prefer their artificial habitats." "I've always felt more at home in the wild," Matt replied, testing the water's flow with his fingers. "Even back on Earth, I spent more time in forests than cities." "That is unusual for your species, is it not?" Matt chuckled. "Maybe. Humans are adaptable. It's our greatest strength. We can make ourselves at home, anywhere from desert to tundra, from ocean floor to orbital station. That adaptability is admirable," Elisa said, her eyes lingering on the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders as he leaned over the stream. Matt felt her gaze and turned, catching her watching him. For a moment, neither spoke, the air between them charged with something more than just the tension of their escape. "We should keep moving," he said finally, his voice rougher than he intended. As the day progressed, the forest grew more challenging. Matt helped Elisa navigate difficult terrain, his hand often finding hers as they climbed over fallen trees or descended steep embankments. Each touch lingered a little longer than necessary. Each glance held a moment more than required. By late afternoon, they had put several miles between themselves and the cabin. The sounds of pursuit had faded, but Matt remained vigilant, frequently checking their back trail. "There's a place ahead where we can rest," he said, pointing to a rock formation barely visible through the trees. "Natural cave system, good shelter, defensible position." The cave entrance was hidden behind a curtain of hanging vines, the interior cool and surprisingly dry. Matt set down his pack and began gathering materials for a small, smokeless fire. "Your survival skills are exceptional," Elisa observed, helping him arrange stones in a circle. "On my world, such knowledge is passed from parent to child from the earliest age." "My father taught me," Matt said, the memory bringing an unexpected smile. "He believed every human should know how to survive with nothing but their wits and a good knife." "A wise man," Elisa replied. "My people believe that true understanding comes only from direct experience with the natural world." As the small fire cast dancing shadows across the cave walls, they shared a simple meal of emergency rations, supplemented with edible plants Matt had gathered along their route. The conversation flowed easily between them, spanning topics from the differences in their planetary ecosystems to the similarities in their species' music. "Your people's connection to rhythm mirrors our own," Elisa said, demonstrating a complex hand pattern that accompanied traditional songs. "Though our scales have 13 tones to your 8. Matt watched her hands move in the firelight, mesmerized by the graceful gestures. When she finished, he found himself reaching out, his fingers interlacing with hers. "I never expected to find someone like you," he said quietly. "Especially not in my creek." Elisa's blue skin seemed to glow in the firelight, the patterns on her arms pulsing subtly as her pulse quickened. Among my people, it is said that the universe brings together those who are meant to find each other. Do you believe that? Matt asked, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. I never did before, she whispered, leaning closer. But now I wonder. Their first kiss was tentative, a gentle exploration of the unknown. Her lips were softer than he'd imagined, slightly cooler than a human's, with a faint taste of something like wild honey. When they parted, Matt saw his own wonder reflected in her violet eyes. I've never, she began. With a human, he asked. With anyone who made me feel this way, she finished, her hand coming up to trace the contours of his face, as if memorizing him by touch. Outside, the alien forest grew quiet as night fell, the bioluminescent fungi beginning their evening glow. Inside the cave, two beings from different worlds discovered the universal language of touch and desire, finding in each other something neither had expected, a connection that transcended the boundaries of species and space. In the soft light of the dying fire, they explored each other with gentle curiosity and growing passion, their differences becoming points of fascination rather than barriers. And for the first time in 3 years, Matt felt truly alive. The weight of his past temporarily lifted by the promise of something new and unexpected. Matt awoke to the soft glow of dawn filtering through the cave entrance. For a moment he lay still, savoring the unfamiliar weight of Elisa's head on his chest, her silvery hair spilling across his skin like liquid moonlight. Her breathing was slower than a human's, each exhalation releasing a faint scent reminiscent of night-blooming jasmine. Last night had been extraordinary. Their differences had created moments of awkward discovery that quickly transformed into delightful exploration. Elisa's laughter when he'd kissed a particularly sensitive spot behind her ear still echoed in his mind, musical and uninhibited. You're thinking very loudly, she murmured against his skin, her violet eyes opening to meet his. Matt smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Just appreciating the view. A human expression? She asked, propping herself up on one elbow. Something like that. He traced the intricate patterns on her shoulder, marveling at how they seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. These markings, they're beautiful. They tell our lineage, Elisa explained, watching his fingers with evident pleasure. Each pattern represents an ancestral connection. They become more complex as we age. So they're like a living history book? Yes, though much more personal than your written records. She traced a small scar on his collarbone. Your scars serve a similar purpose, do they not? Each tells a story of your life. Matt was about to respond when a brilliant blue light suddenly illuminated the cave. They both sat up, instantly alert. The glow emanated from beneath Elisa's borrowed shirt. The fragment, she whispered, carefully extracting the wrapped artifact piece from her pocket. As she unwrapped it, the iridescent material pulsed with increasing intensity. The markings, similar to those on Elisa's skin, now shifted and rearranged themselves before their eyes. It's never done this before, Matt said, watching in fascination. Elisa's expression was one of wonder and concentration. It's responding to me and to you. Her fingers danced over the surface, tracing patterns that seemed to respond to her touch. The intimacy we shared has altered its energy signature. Our combined life forces have activated a dormant protocol. The fragment projected a three-dimensional map into the air between them, a topographical representation of the surrounding terrain. A pulsing red dot marked their current location, while a steady blue glow highlighted a point several miles away. That's not the ruins, Matt said, studying the projection. It's about 5 miles southwest of them, underground, from the look of it. The complete artifact isn't in the ruins as I believed, Elisa said, her voice filled with excitement. This is showing us its true location. She looked up at Matt, her eyes wide. The ruins must have been merely a waypoint or a decoy to protect the real site. Matt frowned, mentally calculating. That puts it right under the heart of Vorn activity now. They must have figured this out too. Not necessarily. Elisa manipulated the projection, zooming in on the blue marker. The Vorn are still concentrated at the ruins. They haven't found this location yet. Which means we have a chance, Matt said, already reaching for his pack. But we'll need to circle back, get closer to their search area. Elisa nodded, carefully rewrapping the fragment. As she tucked it away, her hand lingered on Matt's arm. Last night, was it unusual for you, being with someone not of your species? Matt covered her hand with his own. It was different, yes, but in all the ways that matter, the connection, the feeling, it was more real than anything I've experienced before. A smile bloomed across her face, her blue skin flushing a deeper azure around her cheeks. Among my people, physical union is seen as an exchange of energies, a blending of life forces. It is significant. It's significant for humans too, Matt said, pulling her closer. At least it is for me. Their kiss was briefer than those they'd shared the night before, but charged with new understanding. When they parted, Elisa's expression had grown serious. There's something else you should know, she said. The fragment's activation suggests the complete artifact is more powerful than I initially believed. In the wrong hands, it could do more than just provide genetic healing for my people. What exactly are we talking about? Matt asked, his tactical mind already assessing the implications. The life seed doesn't just heal. It can rewrite genetic code entirely. The Vorn would use it to create biological weapons, perhaps even force evolutionary changes on subject populations. Matt whistled low. No wonder they're throwing resources at finding it. They packed quickly, erasing all signs of their presence from the cave. Outside, the forest was coming alive with morning sounds. Alien birds trilling complex melodies, insect-like creatures buzzing among the fluorescent flowers that had opened with the dawn. We'll need to be extra careful, Matt said as they set out, following a game trail that would take them on a circuitous route toward their new destination. The Vorn will have expanded their search pattern by now. My people have a saying, Elisa offered, matching his stride with surprising ease despite the oversized boots. The hunter who follows only one path will never catch the prey that knows many. Matt grinned. On Earth, we say, think outside the box. Not quite as poetic. Your human expressions are charmingly direct, she replied, a teasing lilt in her voice. Like your approach to physical affection. Too direct? He asked, helping her over a fallen log, his hands lingering at her waist. Refreshingly so, she assured him. My species tends toward elaborate courtship rituals that can last for cycles. Your efficiency was most welcome. Matt laughed, the sound startling a flock of small, iridescent creatures from a nearby bush. I've never had my lovemaking described as efficient before. Is that not a compliment among humans? Elisa asked, genuine confusion crossing her features. Let's just say it's not typically what a man hopes to hear, Matt explained, still chuckling. Elisa's expression shifted to one of mischievous understanding. Ah, I see. Perhaps I should mention your impressive stamina and creative approach to interspecies anatomy instead? It was Matt's turn to flush. That would work. Their banter continued as they made their way through the increasingly difficult terrain. By midday, they had crossed a ridge that gave them a distant view of the ruins and the Vorn activity surrounding them. At least a dozen skimmers patrolled the area, with larger transport vessels landed in a clearing that hadn't existed when Matt lived nearby. Armed soldiers in sleek armor moved in organized patterns, their helmets featuring distinctive red visors that glinted in the sunlight. Standard search formation, Matt observed, passing his field glasses to Elisa. They're thorough, I'll give them that. The commander will be in the central vessel, Elisa said, studying the scene. General Krell, most likely. He's been hunting artifacts for decades. You've encountered him before? Only by reputation. He's known for his ruthlessness and efficiency. She handed the glasses back to Matt. We should move. Their scanners have limited range, but we shouldn't test our luck. As they descended the far side of the ridge, Matt found himself watching Elisa with new eyes. The way she moved through the forest, her inherent grace combined with a warrior's awareness, stirred something in him beyond mere physical attraction. In just 2 days, she had reawakened parts of himself he thought long dead. His sense of purpose, his capacity for connection, his willingness to risk everything for something that mattered. And as they continued their journey toward the hidden location of the artifact, Matt realized that for the first time in 3 years, He was no longer running from his past. Instead, he was running toward a future, one that against all odds might include the blue-skinned woman who had appeared like a vision in his creek just yesterday morning. The forest grew denser as Matt and Elisa approached the coordinates indicated by the fragment. Massive trees with spiral-patterned bark towered overhead, their canopies filtering the afternoon sunlight into an emerald haze. The undergrowth had become a maze of phosphorescent fungi and carnivorous plants that snapped lazily at passing insects. "We're getting close," Matt whispered, checking the makeshift map he'd sketched based on the fragment's projection. "Less than a mile now." Elisa nodded, her violet eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. The fragment tucked against her chest pulsed with increasing frequency, its glow visible even through the fabric of her borrowed shirt. "The artifact is responding to proximity," she said, placing her hand over the hidden fragment. "Its energy signature will intensify as we—" Matt's hand shot up, silencing her. His body tensed, head tilted slightly as he listened. Years of survival instincts kicked in, and he pulled Elisa behind the massive trunk of a spiral tree, just as the distinctive whine of a Vorn skimmer cut through the forest sounds. "Patrol," he breathed against her ear, his arm protectively around her waist. The skimmer hovered just above the canopy, its sensors sweeping the area below. Matt could make out the silhouettes of 3 Vorn soldiers through the craft's transparent bottom, tall, angular figures with distinctive crested helmets. "They're using thermal imaging," Elisa whispered. "The trees will mask us somewhat, but if they're thorough—" Matt's mind raced through options. Running would expose them immediately. Staying put was a gamble. They needed a distraction. "The fragment," he said suddenly. "You said it responds to you. Can you use it somehow?" Elisa's eyes widened with understanding. She carefully extracted the artifact piece, its blue glow now bright enough to illuminate their hiding spot. Closing her eyes, she cupped the fragment in both hands and began to whisper in her native language, musical syllables that seemed to resonate with the pulsing light. The fragment's glow intensified, then shot upward in a thin beam that pierced through the canopy about 50 yards from their position. The effect was immediate. The skimmer veered sharply toward the false signal, its engines whining as it accelerated. "Now!" Matt grabbed Elisa's hand, and they sprinted in the opposite direction, using the distraction to put distance between themselves and the patrol. They ran until their lungs burned, finally collapsing behind a fallen tree covered in luminous moss. Matt peered over their shelter, watching for pursuit, while Elisa worked to calm the fragment's energy. "That was quick thinking," he panted, turning to her with admiration. "An old trick," she replied, her chest heaving with exertion. "The fragment responds to emotional states. Fear creates projection." "Remind me to be terrified more often," Matt quipped, earning a small smile from Elisa. The moment of relief was short-lived. A crackling sound from their right was their only warning before a Vorn energy blast scorched the log inches from Matt's head. "Contact!" a harsh voice barked. "2 subjects. Sector 7. Matt reacted instinctively, drawing his pulse pistol and returning fire in a single fluid motion. His shot caught the Vorn soldier in the shoulder, spinning him backward into the underbrush. "Run!" Matt shouted to Elisa, providing covering fire as 2 more Vorn emerged from the forest. They fled deeper into the woods, energy blasts sizzling past them, igniting the vegetation. Matt's combat training took over. He zigzagged unpredictably, making them difficult targets while steadily drawing the Vorn away from Elisa's position. A fallen tree provided momentary cover. Matt dropped behind it, checking his weapon's charge. 3 shots left. Not enough. A shadow fell across him. He looked up to see a Vorn soldier looming above, weapon aimed at his chest. Matt kicked upward, knocking the alien's legs from under him, then rolled atop the stunned soldier. They grappled briefly before Matt landed a solid punch to the Vorn's throat, collapsing its breathing apparatus. Seizing the fallen soldier's weapon, Matt sprinted toward where he'd last seen Elisa. The forest had grown eerily quiet. No energy blasts, no pursuit. His heart hammered against his ribs as fear gripped him. "Elisa?" he called softly, scanning the undergrowth. A flash of blue caught his eye. Elisa's hand, beckoning from behind a cluster of bioluminescent fungi. Relief flooded through him as he joined her in the hiding spot. "Are you hurt?" he asked, quickly checking her for injuries. I'm unharmed, she assured him, but I managed to capture this. She held up a Vorn communication device, its display glowing with alien script. It was on the soldier you disabled, she explained. I thought it might provide useful intelligence. Matt grinned, impressed by her resourcefulness. Can you read it? Elisa nodded, her fingers dancing across the device's surface. Basic Vorn script isn't so different from ancient Lyrian. They're coordinating search patterns, focusing on... Her voice trailed off, her expression hardening. What is it? Matt asked, noticing the change. They mention a source, an informant. Her violet eyes met his, troubled. Someone named Talon. He's one of my people, Matt, a senior member of my order. Matt watched her face carefully. Could be a coincidence. Another Talon. No! She shook her head, silver hair swaying. The message specifically mentions Lyrian asset Talon and genetic stabilization payment. He's betrayed us, betrayed our entire species for personal gain. The pain in her voice was palpable. Matt placed his hand over hers, offering silent support. There's more, she continued, her voice steadying. They've narrowed the artifact's location to within half a kilometer of here. We don't have much time. Matt checked the captured Vorn weapon. Then we move now. The patrol will have called for backup. As they prepared to continue their journey, Elisa suddenly placed her hand on Matt's chest, stopping him. Her eyes searched his face with an intensity that made his breath catch. If we're captured, she said softly, the Vorn will show no mercy. What we shared last night, I want you to know it wasn't merely physical comfort in a dangerous situation. Matt covered her hand with his own, feeling her heartbeat through her palm. I know, he said simply. For me too. In the dappled light of the alien forest, surrounded by danger, they shared a moment of perfect understanding. Matt drew her close, their foreheads touching in an intimate gesture that somehow felt more significant than their physical union the night before. We're going to find this artifact, he promised. We're going to save your people. And then, he left the sentence unfinished, the future too uncertain to name. Elisa's lips curved into a smile. And then she agreed, the two simple words holding infinite possibility. With renewed determination, they continued toward the coordinates, now armed with Vorn weapons and the knowledge that they faced not only an external enemy, but also betrayal from within Elisa's own ranks. The fragment pulsed against Elisa's chest, growing warmer as they drew closer to their destination, and to the answers Matt had sought for 3 long years. The coordinates led Matt and Elisa to a secluded clearing where a perfectly circular pond reflected the alien sky. Unlike the creek where they had first met, this water was unnaturally still, its surface like polished glass. Bioluminescent water lilies floated at the edges, their gentle glow intensifying as darkness began to fall. This is it, Elisa whispered, the fragment in her hands pulsing in rhythm with the lilies. The entrance must be beneath the water. Matt stared at the pond, a cold sensation creeping up his spine. I've been here before, he said slowly, memories surfacing like bubbles from the depths. Elisa turned to him, surprise evident in her violet eyes. During your expedition? Yes. Matt approached the water's edge, kneeling to touch the surface. Ripples spread outward in perfect concentric circles. The final day. We were mapping the area around the ruins when our sensors picked up unusual energy readings. I followed them here while the others continued cataloging the main site. The memory unfolded with sudden clarity, the excitement of discovery, the call to his team leader about the find. I was about to dive in when Nexor, our team leader, ordered me back to the ruins, said it was too dangerous to explore alone. Matt's jaw tightened. 2 hours later, the chamber collapsed. Everyone died. Elisa placed her hand on his shoulder. Except you. I was outside, securing equipment. I heard the explosion, ran back. His voice faltered. There was nothing I could do. It wasn't an accident, Elisa said softly. Nexor was Talon's cousin. They must have been working together. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They sacrificed the team to hide this place, Matt realized. They needed to make sure no one else found it. And to eliminate witnesses, Elisa added. But they didn't count on you surviving. Matt stood, anger and purpose replacing the guilt he'd carried for 3 years. Well, I did survive. And now we're going to finish what my team started. They prepared quickly, securing their equipment in waterproof pouches. Matt checked the captured Vorn weapon one last time before slinging it across his back. The fragment will guide us, Elisa explained, securing it against her chest with a strip of fabric. Its energy signature will intensify as we approach the complete artifact. Matt nodded, then hesitated. Before we do this, there's something I need to say. He took her hands in his, their warmth a stark contrast to the cool evening air. Whatever happens down there, meeting you has been worth it. You've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Elisa's blue skin flushed a deeper azure as she stepped closer, her body fitting perfectly against his. Among my people, there is a belief that souls recognize each other across lifetimes, across species. Perhaps that explains why, from the moment I saw you at the creek, I felt as though I'd found something I'd been searching for without knowing it. Their kiss was tender yet urgent, a promise and a prayer wrapped in one. When they parted, Matt rested his forehead against hers, breathing in her exotic scent. "Ready?" he asked. "With you." "Always," she replied. They dove together into the still water, which parted around them like liquid silver. The pond was deeper than it appeared, extending downward in a perfect cylinder. Bioluminescent organisms lined the walls, providing just enough light to navigate by. As they descended, the fragment's glow intensified, illuminating their path. Matt felt a strange pressure in his ears, not from depth but from something else, an energy field that seemed to scan them as they swam deeper. Just when his lungs began to burn, the vertical shaft opened into a horizontal tunnel. They surfaced in an air pocket, gasping. "We're inside the facility," Elisa whispered, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. The tunnel ahead was clearly artificial. Smooth walls inscribed with the same markings as those on the fragment and on Elisa's skin. The patterns glowed faintly, responding to their presence. "The script is changing," Elisa observed as they pulled themselves from the water onto a narrow ledge. "It's adapting to us." Matt watched in fascination as the alien characters shifted and rearranged themselves. What does it say?" "Welcome, Seekers," Elisa translated, her fingers tracing the glowing symbols. "The life seed awaits those worthy of its power." They followed the tunnel, which gradually widened into a corridor. The walls hummed with dormant energy, awakening after millennia of silence. Matt couldn't shake the feeling that the facility was somehow aware of them, evaluating their every movement. "The ancients built this place as a both vault and testing ground," Elisa explained, sensing his unease. "It judges those who enter, determining their worthiness." "And if we're found wanting?" Matt asked. Elisa's expression was grim. "The stories speak of defenses that can unmake a person at the molecular level." "Cheerful," Matt muttered, tightening his grip on the Vorn weapon. The corridor ended at a massive circular door, its surface covered in concentric rings of script that rotated slowly, like a combination lock seeking the right alignment. "This is it," Elisa breathed, the fragment now glowing so brightly it illuminated the entire chamber. The inner sanctum. As she approached the door, the fragment pulsed once, twice, then projected a beam of light that connected with the center of the door. The rings began to spin faster, the symbols blurring into bands of light. A deep rumbling shook the facility, and Matt steadied himself against the wall. "Is that supposed to happen?" Before Elisa could answer, a voice spoke from behind them, smooth, cultured, and unmistakably smug. "I must thank you for solving the entrance puzzle. We've been trying for days." They spun to find Talon standing at the corridor entrance, flanked by two Vorn soldiers. The Lyrian was taller than Elisa, his blue skin darker and etched with more complex patterns. His silver hair was elaborately braided, signifying his high rank. "Talon," Elisa hissed, her body tensing. "My dear Elisa," he replied with false warmth, "always so resourceful. And you've brought a human pet. How quaint." Matt raised the Vorn weapon, but Talon merely smiled. "I wouldn't," he advised. "My friends here are rather trigger-happy, and we do need Elisa alive." "You, however," he shrugged elegantly. "Well, one human witness was already one too many." "You murdered my team," Matt growled, anger burning through his veins. A regrettable necessity, Talon replied without a hint of remorse, just as your death will be. But first, he gestured to the still spinning door. We have a destiny to fulfill. The door suddenly stopped rotating and began to slide open, revealing a chamber bathed in brilliant blue light. At its center floated a complete version of the fragment, the life seed in its entirety, pulsing with power that made the air itself vibrate. At last, Talon breathed, his eyes reflecting the artifact's glow. The power to rewrite life itself. Matt glanced at Elisa, a silent communication passing between them. In that moment, he knew what they had to do, and that they would do it together, whatever the cost. As the door completed its opening sequence, the facility's voice spoke again, this time in a language all could understand. Final verification required. Approach seekers and be judged. The chamber fell silent as the life seed pulsed with ancient power, its blue-white radiance casting long shadows across the carved walls. Talon stepped forward, his face a mask of reverent greed. At last, he breathed, the power to save our species, to save myself, is within reach. This isn't about saving our people, Elisa countered, her voice steady despite the danger. You sold them out to the Vorn for your own genetic treatment. Talon's expression hardened. A necessary sacrifice. The many for the few who deserve to survive. That's not your decision to make, Matt said, positioning himself protectively beside Elisa. The life seed's glow intensified, as if responding to their exchange. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from the artifact, sweeping over each person in the chamber. When it reached Matt, it lingered, bathing him in brilliant azure energy. What's happening? One of the Vorn soldiers hissed, raising his weapon nervously. The facility's voice resonated through the chamber. Guardian identified. Human genetic structure optimal for life seed stewardship. Impossible, Talon snarled. A human cannot. Genetic diversity analysis complete, the voice continued, ignoring the outburst. Human adaptability quotient exceeds threshold. Moral integrity assessment, positive. Guardian status confirmed. The beam connecting Matt to the life seed widened, enveloping him completely. He gasped as knowledge flooded his consciousness. Images of ancient civilizations, the creation of the artifact, its purpose not merely to heal but to guide evolution itself. Matt! Elisa called, reaching for him. As her fingers touched his arm, the energy field expanded to include her, their minds connected through the artifact's power, thoughts and feelings flowing between them with perfect clarity. In that moment, Matt understood everything. The life seed had been waiting for precisely this union, the adaptability and resilience of humanity combined with the ancient wisdom and genetic complexity of the Lyrians. No! Talon lunged forward, his face contorted with rage. It belongs to me, to us. He grabbed for the life seed, breaking the energy connection. The artifact flared defensively, sending a pulse of energy that knocked everyone backward. Matt felt the power that had briefly filled him recede, leaving behind only fragments of understanding. But it was enough. The Vorn soldiers! He shouted to Elisa as Talon struggled to his feet. They can't be allowed to report back. Understanding immediately, Elisa touched the fragment still secured against her chest. It responded to her, projecting a blinding flash that temporarily disoriented the Vorn. Matt seized the opportunity, tackling one soldier while Elisa disabled the other with a precise strike to a vulnerable point in their armor, knowledge she'd gained during their brief connection to the life seed. Talon recovered quickly, drawing a concealed weapon. You think your primitive human reflexes can match mine? He sneered, firing at Matt. Matt dodged with unexpected speed, the residual energy of the life seed enhancing his natural abilities. He felt stronger, faster, his senses heightened beyond normal human capacity. Actually, Matt replied, closing the distance between them in a blur of movement. I'm counting on it. His fist connected with Talon's jaw, sending the Lyrian traitor staggering backward. Talon recovered quickly, his own enhanced physiology evident as he counterattacked with inhuman speed. They exchanged blows in a deadly dance, evenly matched despite their different species. Meanwhile, Elisa had reached the life seed. Her hands hovered just above its surface, not quite touching as she communed with it mentally. The artifact responded, its glow pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. "Matt," she called, "I need you." Disengaging from Talon with a powerful kick that sent the traitor crashing into the wall, Matt rushed to her side. Without hesitation, he placed his hands alongside hers above the life seed. The connection re-established instantly, stronger than before. This time, they were prepared for the flood of information, accepting it rather than resisting. Through their joined consciousness, they understood what needed to be done. "Together," Elisa whispered, her violet eyes meeting his. They lowered their hands simultaneously, touching the life seed surface. A surge of power erupted from the artifact, engulfing them in a cocoon of energy that spiraled outward. Where their skin touched, intricate patterns formed, the same ancient script that covered the walls, now etching itself into Matt's flesh, just as it had always adorned Elisa's. Talon screamed in rage, charging toward them with his weapon raised. The energy field surrounding Matt and Elisa pulsed once, and Talon froze mid-stride, his body outlined in blue light. "You betrayed your people," Elisa said, her voice resonating with the life seed's power. "You betrayed the Ancients' trust. The judgment is yours to make," the facility's voice informed them, "as rightful guardians." Matt and Elisa exchanged a glance, their thoughts flowing freely between them through their new bond. Without words, they reached a decision. "Not death," Matt declared, "but justice." The energy field surrounding Talon contracted, seeping into his skin. He collapsed to his knees, gasping as the patterns on his body began to fade. "Your genetic modifications are reversed," Elisa explained calmly. "You will live as our people were meant to live, with the same genetic degradation you sought to escape. Your fate will be shared with those you betrayed." "No," Talon whispered, examining his dulling skin in horror. "You can't." "We can," Matt replied, "and we have." With Talon neutralized and the Vorn soldiers unconscious, Matt and Elisa turned their attention back to the life seed. Through their connection, they directed its power outward, sending a pulse that disabled the Vorn ships on the surface and erased all records of the facility's location from their databases. As the energy flowed through them, Matt felt himself changing at the cellular level. The patterns forming on his skin weren't merely decorative, they were functional, altering his genetic structure to complement Elisa's, creating a bridge between their species that had never before existed. When the process completed, the chamber dimmed to a soft glow. Matt looked down at his arms, now adorned with luminous patterns similar to Elisa's, but uniquely his own. He felt different, stronger, more aware, his senses attuned to energies he'd never perceived before. "What happened to us?" he asked, though he already sensed the answer. Elisa smiled, taking his hands in hers. Where their skin touched, their patterns aligned perfectly, creating new, combined symbols. "We've been bonded," she explained, her voice filled with wonder. "The life seed has rewritten portions of our genetic code, creating a link between us that transcends physical space. It's an honor I never dreamed possible." "So I'm part Lyrian now?" Matt asked, flexing his fingers as he adjusted to the new sensations. "And I'm part human," she replied, "the first true bridge between our species. Together we can use the life seed as it was intended, to heal my people and to forge a new alliance between humans and Lyrians." Matt pulled her close, marveling at how perfectly they fit together, now in both body and mind. Through their bond, he felt her joy, her relief, her love for him that had grown from their first meeting at the creek to this moment of transformation. "What about the Vorn?" he asked, glancing at the unconscious soldiers. "They'll be returned to their ship with no memory of this place," Elisa said. "The facility will ensure they leave this moon and report failure to their superiors." "And Talon? He'll face justice among our people," she replied. "His punishment is living with the condition he sought to escape, but with the knowledge that others will be cured." As they prepared to leave with the now dormant life seeds secure in a containment field, Matt paused to look back at the chamber that had changed everything. "You know," he said with a smile, "when I went to get water from that creek 3 days ago, I never imagined I'd end up bonded to a blue-skinned alien beauty who'd completely changed my life." Elisa laughed, the sound like music in the ancient chamber. "And I never imagined that finding a human male staring at me while I bathed would lead to saving my species." "Humanity, huh?" Matt grinned, pulling her close for a kiss that sent ripples of shared pleasure through their bond. "We're full of surprises." 3 months later, Matt stood on the balcony of their new home on Lyria, watching twin moons rise over the horizon. The patterns on his skin glowed softly in the twilight, responding to Elisa's approach before he consciously registered her presence. "The first treatments have been administered," she announced, joining him at the railing. "The council reports complete success. The genetic degradation is reversing in all test subjects." Matt pulled her into his arms, feeling her joy through their bond. "Your people will survive." "Our people," she corrected, resting her head against his chest. "The council has officially recognized you as a citizen of Lyria, the first human to hold that honor." "And Earth has approved the alliance treaty," Matt added. "The cultural exchange program starts next month." Elisa smiled up at him, her violet eyes reflecting the moonlight. "All because you happened to see me bathing in that creek." "Best bucket of water I never collected," Matt replied, lowering his lips to hers. As they kissed under the alien stars, their patterns glowed in harmony, a visible symbol of the bridge they had built between their worlds. What had begun with a chance encounter at a creek had blossomed into something neither could have imagined. A love that transcended species, a bond that had saved a civilization, and a future filled with possibilities as endless as the stars above.